just going to cover this tape on the rotator cuff muscles. They're not really understood that well. They're quite a small group, and your humerus this is what I represent as a humerus, and at the top of the humerus you've got like a ball that sits there. Now the rotator cuff muscles lie under the major group, such as the deltoids, you know, the front, the rear, and the top deltoid here, so it's a big deltoid head that sits there. Underneath those muscles are the rotator cuff muscles, which rotate the humerus, pull the humerus up, adduct, abduct, and bring forward and go back. Alright, also down at the elbow joint, the internal rotation this way. So internally this rotates inwards. Then external rotation, it rotates outwards. So these four muscle groups that are attached to the joint here, this is what people have problems, and it causes impingements in the joints. Now I'll describe what those four major rotator cuff muscles are, and we'll do that in the next tape. Right, the four rotator muscle groups which control the humerus, and at the top of the humerus is like that ball joint like I showed you. You know, it's like a joint here, it's a ball joint, and that sits under the Ackerman process, and that can get caught up, impinged, very easy to hurt the rotator cuff group. Now there are four controlling muscles that are underneath the deltoids and various other muscles over the back, but mainly the deltoids. And the first one is the subscapularis, which if you cut away the chest, there's a muscle that lies on the inside of your scapula and goes to the top of the humerus. So it goes like the chest, but it's underneath the chest, and pulls the top of the humerus around. Alright, so that's one of them, the subscapularis, and there's diagrams on the tape. The other one is the infraspinatus. So when you look at the shoulder blade here, and imagine the shoulder blade has a muscle that spreads across the shoulder blade. There's diagrams on the video, and it hooks onto the top of the humerus and rotates it backwards. So rotates it backwards like that. And then the next one is the supraspinatus, which sits on the top of the shoulder blade, and it goes from about here through to the top, and it's responsible for pulling the humerus up and over your head. Okay. Now there's one other rotator cuff, and that's called the teres minor. And the teres minor sits on the edge of the scapula and goes up to the top of the humerus, and is responsible for rotating and pulling and holding the humerus in place. It rotates it backwards and what have you. Now there's four directions. There's four directions that you can go with the rotator cuff muscles, and mind you, they are a small muscle group. Internal rotation is this way. External rotation is that way. And now when I'm standing front on, and I'm just reading straight off of one of my physio books, best way to do it is if I'm standing front on and I'm going abduction, or sorry, abduction, sorry, A-D-U-C-T-I-O-N, that's upwards and over your head. Adduction, add as in A-double-D, down towards the hip area. And then of course you've got flexion and extension. So if I stand side on, flexion is moving forward and up over the head, and extension is moving down and extend backwards, or hyperextend right back. Now in that process, the small rotator cuff muscles that are hooked onto the top of the ball that sits in your shoulder blade like that, I'll just get this sitting properly now without falling out. If that sits in there, and it is so easy to damage those muscles. You hear people getting operations on their shoulders and all this sort of thing. It's totally unnecessary if you look after them properly. And after every workout you do rotator cuff exercises. Now they can be those 4 directions with an appropriately strong rubber band, or I usually use like tie straps, hook them onto the bench, pull this way for 10 reps, then pull it the other way for 10 reps. 10 reps straight up over your head, and 10 reps to the side over your head. Now the secret is to put your thumb downwards, and therefore when you put the thumb downwards in these processes, you wind up minimising the involvement of the major muscle group, which is your deltoid sitting over your shoulder. Now there's you can use a broomstick and do the Olympic weightlifting rotator cuff stretch, where you get the Olympic bar, or not the Olympic bar, just a broomstick, something light, grab it between here and bend forward and stretch it backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. I'll do another little tape there in a second with the broomstick stretch. With the broomstick stretch, here we go. We go here and bring that up and over, just like you would do as a weightlifting snatch. And the key is you bring your fingers in, and then when you rotate back, keep your arms straight, and the rotator cuff muscles get stretched fairly severely. Now the best time to do rotator cuff reinforcement stretching is after your workout. Now I've got some diagrams on the video. I didn't bring the rubber bands up because I just haven't got the space in this particular room that I'm doing the taping in. But if you have any questions, please give us a call. Now the other thing is that what you'll have with your rotator cuff muscles is they really have a problem with trigger points. Because they're such a weak muscle, people normally overwork them. They don't understand what they're doing with them. They think it's just a major muscle group that's playing up, but the pain that they're feeling, that when they go to reach up, oh, they feel a pain in the joint, they think it's arthritis. 9 times out of 10 it isn't. It's an impingement by one of these rotator cuff muscles is in a spasm, and then it pulls the shoulder joint into a tight position, because you've got to remember that the shoulder joint just sits here. Like, here's the, it just sits, if that's the top of the humerus, it just sits in a cup. And the only thing that's holding that joint together are the rotator cuff muscles and maybe the biceps sitting up there. But the rotator cuff muscles actually hold it, plus some of the surface muscles, hold the shoulder in place. In itself, it's not a joint. It's not like your hip where it's a ball and socket joint. If you had no muscles, you have a look at a skeleton, and the hip remains intact with your legs. So with the humerus, if you had no muscles sitting there and I was a skeleton, the whole shoulder, this, would just fall straight off the skeleton. So that's how important the rotator cuff muscles are. So I hope you find this video handy. I do have a lot of this on my ultimate stretching tape, but I try to keep it as simple as possible. Yes, acupuncture will do a lot of good to relieve stress on the muscle. This is a deeper subject than I'm covering here, but I'm just trying to do a few quick points so it gives you a little bit of an idea. Graham Healy over and out. Okay, now the humble broomstick, rarely used in gyms these days, but with this here, you'll be able to sort out the rotator cuff
muscle issues. And the reason why I know that, as a former Queensland title Olympic weightlifter, basically we had to do the snatch positions with 2 Olympic plates either side, which is considerable weight, and your shoulders and rotator cuff muscles really had to be sorted out to do those sort of weights. So what we did, we used broomsticks to loosen up the rotator cuff and shoulders accordingly, and I'll show you how to do that. And I've been very successful with many clients who've come to me and said they've got rotator cuff issues. Simply by doing the rotation with the broomstick will solve it 9 times out of 10 if you do it the way I show you to do it. So here we take, it's got to be a 6-foot broomstick, short ones aren't any good. Put it in between your thumb and your forefinger, and what I do is actually lean forward like that. And then as you go up, you reach that sticking point, the sticking point there, and rotate around and up. So here I'm actually moving this in. So I'm moving that in, going up, and it's almost the sticking point now. Moving further, boom, I've got it. Now that's it. Now this is also a great chest and bicep stretch, but as you go back you can really feel, as you're rotating the shoulders, you can feel every single muscle that's involved in the rotator cuff group really stretching out. So I'm getting it there, and I move in a little bit further, just fractions of an inch here, right through, again fractions of an inch again here, and hold it. That's it, the sticking point. And when I get to the sticking point, I actually push outwards. So outwards, creating an isometric tension on all the associated muscle groups, and then roll it through, roll it through. And the object exercise is keep going until you get those sticking points like that one there. Push and hold it, hold it. Force the muscle to relax. Now you may do that 6 to 8 times, 10 times, hold it, hold it. And just do that after every workout that's involved in upper body, especially your shoulders. Make certain you do that particular exercise. Just a simple broomstick, not costly, and that's the one. Remember the Olympic weightlifter. He starts here, drops down up like that. The rotator cuff muscles have got to be really strong, shoulders and everything associated in the shoulder girdle. Now, I find this is really good for the front deltoids and the triceps. Put the broomstick down the line of your spine. Bring your elbow up inside your head. Now, my left shoulder, as I creep this down, I'm hanging on, and this broomstick's right down the line of my spine, so I'm in perfect symmetry, and then I go to pull it apart. Now when I do that, my triceps muscle and my left deltoid is copying on an almighty stretch all the way down the deltoid muscle, right down the arm, and then I creep the arms in, creep them in, and then bang, hit it again. Push, try and pull it apart. Keep yourself symmetrical. If you're doing this in front of the mirror, you watch where the broom handle is and it looks like it's travelling right down your spine like a rod. That's exactly where it should be. Keeping the body in perfect symmetry and balance, and therefore posturally aligned correctly, and can pick up any imbalances along the way. So you do it that way 2 to 3 times, move in, swap it over, pull it in again, bang. Keep that elbow in tight and pull that apart, right? And this right shoulder will cop one hell of a stretch. And move it in again and pull and hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Do that 2 to 3 times, and you'll find any tightness with your shoulders is really relieved. After that, just put your shoulders into this direction and that direction so that you can see you've got the flexion going backwards here like that. 1, 2, get that range of motion into the full flexion, 15 degrees out. This one here, 15 or 10 degrees up. 2, 3, roll the shoulders around here. 1, 2, 3, and backwards. 1, 2, 3, etc. And then karate chop. See, karate chop. 1, stretches the top out. 1, 2. 1, 2. From the side, 1, 2. 1, 2. Elbow, strike. elbow, strike, and then switch them over. Elbow, strike, elbow, strike. So the whole shoulder's starting to get stretched, so you loosen them up, really loosen them up. Now, we've solved quite a few problems, one in particular, with one of my clients who had Sherman's disease from when he was a kid. His whole back was tightened up, it was quite lordotic. He only had about 70% use of his back. David Parker was the client's name. Now, what we did, this particular stretching gave him tremendous relief, apart from the broomstick stretching. There was one that I just thought of to actually pull the middle of the back outwards. And it's like what I call, it's the big hug yourself. So what you do, you go round, lock in. See here, it looks like my hands are creeping in, like that. I pull the elbows down and try and split my shirt. So pull it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm actually pulling the rhomboid muscles, everything across the shoulders being pulled out like that. Swap it over, creep in, and pull. Pull down. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now do that 3 times and swap over. Creep in and try and the thought pattern I want is that you're trying to split your shirt down the centre of the back. Okay, so the next one is just imagine you've got a pec deck and you're using your elbow to push the pec deck in, except I'm going to put my hand here and stop it. And then I'm going to try and push back this way, but by me doing this and going really hard, I'm actually stretching the back of the shoulders and the rear deltoids in an isometric contraction. So here I am here, push, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An opposite way here, push, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I let this hand go, this hand would go back like that. But this is what I'm doing right across the shoulders. It's held isometrically, and it relieves pressure across the shoulder blades. And this was what solved the problem with David Parker. As I said, he had that Sherman's disease, where very lordotic posture, and I slowly manipulated it back. It took us about 6 weeks, but we focused on doing those, the rotators, these ones, and it got his back to, as he said, and I've got that, I think I have that on my website as well, he said about 90% use. So went from 70 to 90 by doing these simple stretches, but in an isometric contractions. So there's some good ones for you to use if you've got these sort of problems.